This thing is insanely fun. This is the ENGWE M20 E-Bike, known as the electric dirt bike in disguise. In this video, I'm going to do a performance test so you know what to expect if you decide to buy one for yourself. And later on, I'll share my thoughts, both good and not so good, regarding the M20. So continue watching. So before I take you guys for a ride on the trails here, I want to go over with you briefly about this bike. This is the ENGWE M20 E-Bike. It is considered a bicycle. It does have pedals, but I like to call it the electric dirt bike in disguise. It has a cafe racer slash dirt bike look to it, and so far it's a blast to ride, especially on the dirt trails. Now, I did do an unboxing and overview video covering all the specs and details. So if you haven't seen that video, you will find it linked down below in the description. But since that video, ENGWE did send out to me a second battery. Now this is available in single or dual battery versions, whatever one you prefer to get. But when you get the second battery, you have a few different options when it comes to how you want to utilize it. So the first way to utilize it is by just keeping the single battery mounted right here, and you could keep the carry pouch that they do include up here to store items. And what you could do is when one battery is charging, you could have one battery on the bike, or you could carry the second battery with you in the backpack, and when the battery dies, just swap it with the new one, and then you can have one on the charger again and still be able to ride the bike. That's one way to utilize it. The second way is they do include this mounting plate, so it does mount to the frame, and you could have both batteries hooked up with an included wire harness that ties it into the control module. Again, you could use one battery at a time. The batteries do have switches, so you could determine which battery you want to have power going to. So when one battery dies out, you can switch to the other one, vice versa. The last variation is by using them in sync. And what I mean by that is that both batteries can be used at the same time. And the way it works is when the batteries are both turned on, both hooked up to the harness and the control module, whatever battery has the most power, it will use the power from that battery first. Once the levels do match the same level, get to the same voltage, they will work coherently together, and they'll give you a dual battery version. Now, it doesn't increase the power, it basically increases the distance that you could go. Now, some people asked in my last video about the weight of this bike. So I could tell you that each battery weighs 5.2 pounds. The single battery version comes in at 89.2 pounds. The dual battery version like this is 94.5 pounds. Now, this is a heavier bike. It's not intended to be lifted easily, to be maneuvered, transported easily, because it's not designed for that. It's a heavy, rugged bike designed for off-road use like this. Honestly, I wouldn't want it to be lighter. Right now, I can tell you it feels really stable, really comfortable, and really secure riding it. But if it was any lighter, I don't think I'd be able to push it as hard as I was. But it's not overly heavy, but it's heavy enough. But it is very similar to a motorcycle where you do have a fixed seat position, so you can control the seat height. It is basically one size fits most, and just like a motorcycle, they are heavier. They are made to go, a little bit higher speeds. This does go up to 28 miles per hour, and able to handle some steeper turns, some soft, rugged material. So a heavier bike, you need to know that in advance. With that being said, let's get on the bike and take it for a ride. Display is working, nice and bright. Now, the one thing I can tell you that I noticed is that the power output for the throttle is based on the pedal assist mode. So if you're in pedal assist 1, you'll get minimum throttle response. If you put in pedal assist 5, you get maximum throttle response, maximum speed. So it's going to be variant and dependent on which pedal assist mode you're in. I am going to be riding this primarily like a motorcycle, just throttle only. I will use the pedals for climbing steeper hills when necessary. Now I am in pedal assist 1, and it's enough for just scooting around like this. going about 12 miles an hour pedal assist 1. And as I mentioned, it feels really secure, really stable. Front and rear suspension is working, softening all these bumps and bounces, as are the fat tires. If this didn't have the fat tires, I'd be getting thrown off from every rock and stone. And also, I wouldn't be able to go through the soft material either. I'm gonna kick it up to pedal assist 2. Really soft material here, but it's going right through it. All right, so I'm gonna turn around and go the other direction. I know we could go further, and I know it's a bouncy ride, but this is what it's intended for. Don't want to go full speed over those fallen trees, I'll tell you that. Now, this is not waterproof. You don't want to take it through deep puddles. It can get wet, but you don't want to hose it or power wash it. You just want to get like a wet cloth to clean it off. I'm going to put in pedal assist 5. We got a hill coming up, so I'm going to use a combination of throttle and pedaling to make it up the hill. Whew, getting some air there. Now I am pedaling, the motor is assisting, and I am making it up at nearly 10 miles an hour. I just spun out on some loose material there, but I'm not using all that much effort. There we go, we climbed a pretty steep hill. I'm back to throttle only. Whew. Got up to about 22, 23 there. All right, hit a jump there pretty fast, got some good air. Man, this is a blast to ride. Now, other e-bikes can handle this type of terrain, but not nearly as fast and not as smooth. Got a big downhill here. Oh, baby. And some big loose material. Now, as much as this bike is geared for this type of terrain, it's also very practical for the roads as well. With both batteries at a full charge and do at least a 5-mile ride, throttle only, to see how it handles the paved trails and streets. Let's get started. And we're going to do a 0 top speed right now. 15, 20, 24, 25, 26. I'm only going to pedal when necessary if we encounter a steep hill. First mile is covered. All right, we're hitting 27. So far so good. It seems like the speed is capable of keeping up with city traffic. Brakes are working as intended. Suspension is working on these terrible roads here in Pennsylvania. We're going to try a hill. We're going to go straight across here, see how it does. Throttle only, we're climbing it 15 miles per hour. Got a steep section here, so I'm going to pedal to help. And I'm going to go back to throttle only. Now don't forget, at the end of this ride, I'm going to share my good and not so good thoughts about this bike, and there are a few things that are not so good about it, at least in my opinion. Now when it comes to riding this on the streets, obviously you need to check with your local ordinances. Here in Pennsylvania, the bikes do share the roads unless there is a designated bike path. Obviously, a license is not required. It's not a motorcycle. It is considered a bicycle. You do have the option to pedal, of course, but having a full twist throttle is just so much fun. The purpose of this test that I'm doing right now is to show you that you can take this bike on dirt trails, on streets, almost anywhere you want. And it's going to get you there safely and effectively and reliably as well. This is a great mode of transportation, especially if you do live in an inner city and you don't want to, waste gas, don't want to have to sit in traffic. You can take the bike, and then when you're off work, you can hit the streets or the trails and just have a load of fun. And we're already at our 4 mile mark. I'm gonna go back here and get up on another section of the trail. This one's a grassy dirt surface. Be a bit bumpier, but it's gonna test the suspension. I'm actually gonna bring the pedal assist down a little bit. Don't need full power right now. And I'm actually finding some old ruins, which may be something worth exploring in a future video. Stay tuned for that. So I know the stabilization on the camera is doing a much better job than what's happening in real life. This is a bumpy section here. It's not really intended for bikes, but just to show you the bike can handle it if need be. We're actually gonna hop the curb here. There we go. All right, we're gonna descend down this hill here. Depot Street. Dirt and gravel trail. Just a perfect example of what I was explaining before. You could take it from the streets to a paved trail, to a dirt trail, to grass. This bike can handle it all. Cruising here at 20 miles an hour. Feels really stable. No wobbles, no rattles. Fenders are protecting me from some rocks kicking up. Another little jump there. Let's see, what do we got here? A little levee, train bridge in the distance. Yeah, let's hit the hill and go check that out. And we're already over our 5 mile mark. Still a full battery. There we go, just made it up here to the train bridge, which I'm not going to cross, but worth showing nonetheless. Let's go a little bit further. We'll push it past 5 miles. And don't forget I have to go all the way back, which I'm not going to record, but if the battery hasn't moved yet, I'm going to have more than enough battery power to get back and then some. Going to climb this hill again here. There we go. We'll continue down a little bit further here. That's almost like a little BMX trail. Let's take a little zip around it, shall we? Some loose material. Fat tires are handling it. Dog doesn't like the bike, but that's expected. just stopped off here at this little beautiful area along the river. And where we stopped here, we put on 6.1 miles, which is a drop in the bucket to what this thing can do. We didn't nearly push it anywhere close to what it could do. So we're still at a full charge, a lot more battery left to go for the remainder of the day. Now, we covered a variety of terrain. We started off in the paved trail section, went to some bumpy roads, streets, to the grass levee area, the dirt rocky trail, to the little BMX section, to here. And the entire time I had a smile on my face. This thing is so much fun to ride. It's just ridiculous how amazing it is and how capable it is. Whether you're going from point A to point B for work, or you want to go out and just tear around town, this thing is going to do it for you. I'm almost guaranteed it's going to exceed your expectations. Now, there are some cons I do want to talk about, as well as some pros. I'm going to start with the pros first. So for the pros, this thing is solidly built. It's really stable. Being at the heavier weight, it's really, really stable. Whether we're going over bumps and bounces, down hills, over stones and soft sand and dirt, it didn't feel like it was going to lose control. Higher speeds, it's incredibly stable. No wobbles, no wiggles, no nothing, no rattles even. It's a really well-built machine. ENGWE really did it right when they built this thing. And it's something that you don't have to do a whole lot of maintenance on. It's basically get on and go and have fun. With it being a dual battery version, you do have the option of running it independently of each other or consecutively and getting the further distance than most other e-bikes could get. So as we did, throttle only, just jetting around town here through the city and even on some trails, had no issues at all. It can handle some moderate hills. If you're pedaling, it can handle them much easier than not, but it is able to handle nearly all types of terrain. If you respect its limits, it's going to get you there in one piece, and it's going to be ready to go for even more. The other pro I want to mention is the seat. The seat, I'll give a rating of 3.5 out of 5. It is fairly comfortable. It's spacious, which I really like, so if you want to sit further back or closer up, you have the ability to do so. A little bit stiff, but I think over time, as you do ride it more, you are putting some weight on it, it will soften up. But the seat is capable for some decent rides. Now, aside from how it looks, which draws a lot of attention, I had a lot of people looking, they're wondering, is that a motorcycle? Is that an e-bike? Is that a moped? What is that thing? It's definitely going to get a lot of attention. It's going to be a great conversation starter, especially when you come across other e-bike riders. Now for the negatives, for the cons. And I'm going to be honest and truthful, and these are just my opinion. I don't speak for anyone else, but these are things I did notice. With the position of the seat and the second battery, this area right here, I call it the Nutcracker 3000. And I call it that for good reason, because I experienced a nutcracker moment. If you're going at a fairly good rate of speed and you have to come to a sudden abrupt stop and you're not properly bracing yourself, you're going to crush your nuts. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's not a pleasant feeling. After learning that the hard way, I make sure I have a good solid grip. Arms are, kind of locked out, feet are braced. So if I do come into an unexpected stop, that won't happen again. So that's something you need to keep in mind. Now, if you don't have this second battery on here and you just have the compartment bag that comes with it, that won't be a concern. But the second battery, proximity to the seat, it is a risk of happening. With the components this bike has, it does have mechanical disc brakes. They are sufficient. I didn't have any problem stopping at all, whether it was downhill, off-road riding, or on the streets. It stopped me efficiently. But I do think this should have hydraulic disc brakes. For what you're paying, for what this bike does offer, hydraulic disc brakes would be a nice welcome addition to the M20. The other thing is, and this is probably the most important, that's going to make or break if you should buy this bike. It's heavier weight, as I mentioned. I'm going to put on the screen again the weights of this with the single and dual battery version. This is by far not an easy bike to transport. Unless you have a pickup truck like me to put it in the back, or a really large SUV, or a hitch bike rack, this can't go in the trunk of your car. It's not going to fit in smaller SUVs. It's a really heavy bike. The heaviness does help with the stability, but it hurts with lifting it up. It's a really heavy bike. The other negative aspect too is that it's not a great hill climber. Really steep hills, this thing struggles. There's times where I had to get off and push it because this hill was too steep and just didn't have enough power. Now, having a 750 watt motor is powerful enough for this bike for most conditions. If you're riding flats or slight inclines, throttle only, it's not going to be an option. I mean, an issue, sorry. If you're coming to a steeper incline, kick in the pedal assist, you're still going to make it. But for some really steep hills, this is going to struggle. There are other e-bikes out there that handle hills much better than this. That's because they're lighter. Being at the weight that this is, it's not a hill climber. So as long as you are aware of that and respect its limits and its abilities, it's not going to disappoint you. Lastly, a big special thanks to ENGWE for sending this bike out to me and giving me the opportunity to share with all of you. Initially, after I got it, I thought about selling this bike after review because I'm like, it looks cool, it's kind of fun, I think, but it's not something I'm going to be using on a regular basis. Well, this bike grew on me. It changed my mind. The more I ride it, the more I love it. And this thing is going to be going home with me, and I'm going to be keeping it. I'm going to be having some fun times on this. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. If you missed my first video where I unboxed it, assembled it, and covered all the specs, you'll find that link down below in the description. Otherwise, thanks for watching, ride safe, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.